Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divergent Dialogues. We're really excited because this is our first episode of 2025. Teena and I are feeling a little bit rusty, so please forgive us for that. So this is episode 31, and we'll be talking about neurodivergent affirming approaches to parenting, and we have a special guest, B, with us. So welcome, B. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to read your bio now because if I don't, I'll totally forget because I've done that before when we've had guests. Um, and I'm pretty sure I'm dyslexic, so forgive me if I stumble over my words. So B is a former restaurateur and hospitality professional with over 25 years experience balancing motherhood with the demands of small business life. Her voracious appetite for growth and development in leadership roles took her down a path of self-directed inquiry into community advocacy that spans interests ranging from worker self-directed enterprises and cultural anthropology to attachment theory and social work and beyond. B is a freelance writer, podcast host of Cosmic Cheer Squad podcast and partner in the Positive Disintegration Network. She is an advocate for joy, rest, and healing through her work, regardless of job title. B is currently a full-time unschooling mum of two neurodivergent kids and still a mum to one who lives on their own in Texas, and launched pragmagination.com as an aggregate for her various works in progress. Whew, that was a tongue twister.
It's nice to hear all that out loud, because that's all true now. So
Yeah.
manifesting those dreams.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I always I feel awkward when I'm asked to write a bio, and then yeah, when people read it out, I'm like, oh wow, like I do a lot of things. That's that's pretty cool. So
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
thanks for having me. Yes.
That's all good. So yeah, I guess I guess full disclosure, I don't have children, but I do work with children, adolescents, and parents through my practice. So I think Tina and B will probably, I think I'd really love to get your lived experience of being neurodivergent parents and also having neurodivergent kids. So yeah, I guess like just to start off broadly, I mean, what's it like?
Really hard, but
Sorry.
super fun. Really hard, but super fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I have these three books that for each of my kids because I have three of them, and it started when each of them when they were born, and I would write cool things they would say and do, and it's really quite funny, and I never kept up with it because I'm an ADHDer, but I really wish I had because it really is hilarious and fun and kind of lots of WTF, did that just happen? But also tough at times. But yeah, definitely fun.
Yeah. And for yourself, B, if you were to sum it up?
Oh, worth the effort. But yeah, it's like a constant experiment and work in progress. It is so fun and so many hilarious things come up every day. I mean, I share many of them with you as they arise, but I love this is one of my joys of social media is that I will often in the moment, I don't have a lot of bandwidth to do multiple things at any given time, but my phone is usually with me because it's my primary, outlet to the world. And like as they do and say funny things, like I can, either share those with my community online or I send them to a friend or whatever. And it's like I go back and look at these things and I think how fun and how exciting that like we can document these things too. And always conscious of the sharing and what that looks like because having been a somewhat public figure since especially the two little ones have been around, I'm like, I have to be careful because when they, if I post something, and then when they were in school, it was like their parents would tell their kids. And so there was like, oh yeah, so now I ask them for consent before I post things. But yeah, it's so nice to have a record of the goofy stuff that they do. Baby books are great. And then now as they're older kids, but not yet teenagers, there's so many different things going on at any given time that are mostly hilarious and also, to echo Teena for sure, a lot of work.
Yeah. Um, And I'm pretty sure that you have kids that are about the similar age as well. I think is it 10 and 12 for you, and you have your and
My
Sammy.
25, yep,
Yeah.
10 and 12. And then Teena,
Yeah, I'm 16, 13, and my son's about to turn 12.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
similar-ish. Yeah. Fun ages.
Yeah, they really are. Like, yeah, it's ever changing, and I think keeping track of all the fun stuff really helps to get through the hard parts. Because sometimes it's just a collection of really difficult things, especially over Christmas. Like that's it's hard for me because we're out of routine. There's none of our normal structure to anchor to, and it's exactly the same for them. But it's confusing for them because it's like, oh, why is all this happening? Why am I feeling like this? It's Christmas, I'm on school holidays. So it's yeah, the holidays can actually be quite tricky. Yeah, but also good because they're ADHDers, so they like the no time thing, but they get lost in the time. So yeah.
So I
I was
guess.
going to say
Oh, you go, B.
another thing that Tina and I have in common is that we have shared custody with our former partners. And so that adds another element to navigating and balancing the many different like strings that are moving in our lives at any given time. And yeah, the holidays can be. This was the first year, I think, with both my littler ones being old enough to understand and also now have language, for why things feel the way that they do. And more, they've always had safe space, but like now just like a different framework to sort of operate from to understand and advocate for like what they need and when. So that's been so helpful because we had very busy holidays, but it felt chill and we brought in a lot of, decompression time and just giving everybody a lot of space and it helped a lot.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. We do do the shared care thing, and for me, that is a godsend because I feel like being a part-time parent, as I call myself, allows me that time to regroup and then go back in. Although my kids' dad and stepmom just actually live at the end of my street. So it's not really part-time parenting because we're still quite connected all the time. And I'm so lucky to have a really healthy kind of co-parenting situation, which allows me to really tap out. But yeah, that's not the case for everyone,
Mhm.
unfortunately. I think that, yeah, families that have that separation, but then it's the high conflict that is like, yeah, complexity times 1000, which I'm super grateful not to have to deal with because I think that would have made me implode.
Yeah. I think like something that I have noticed, sorry, something I've noticed a lot in my practice is that sometimes parents come for support for their children. Perhaps it's like the school that's picked up, some challenges, and then we'll be exploring, and it's like, okay, like, we think that your kiddo might be neurodivergent, and then the parents start to tick over and go, oh, hey, like I have all these experiences and I have all these traits. So I guess like what was your experience? Like, did you know that you were neurodivergent first, or did you find out about your neurodivergence through your children's journey, or what did that kind of look like?
I'll start then. Yeah, I did not know that I was neurodivergent until about 10 years ago. I mean, I always identified as being a bit of an outlier and kind of a sassy weirdo, but I didn't know that there was a name for it. And I think as we continue to talk, you'll realize that this is kind of how like everything for me has shaped up. Like I've just been experimenting in life and making my way. And for all the stuff I've been through, I've been like, I got to keep finding more information, right? And like this doesn't feel right. And as soon as something doesn't feel right, or my intuition is guiding me into something, I end up, going into these rabbit holes of finding more information. And been, I was suffering postpartum depression pretty intensely after Ziggy was born, but then 18 months later, when his sister was born, it was really intense. And, before then, I'd only had one child for 13 years. And I mean, life is goofy, and I embraced that. And, things happen and whatnot. And I don't know what happened was like the postpartum depression compounded, my existing existential depression. I went back on antidepressants for the first time in 15 years or so. And that helped so much. But then I was also like, there's something else going on. And then I was assessed for ADHD. And that was like, my mind went, oh, wow, that makes so much more sense. But then that also I was like, I feel like there's something else. And then that something else was, starting to remember that I was the gifted kid. And then I was like, oh, those don't exist anymore. I didn't become anything. And, so I don't know, fast forward 8 more years and Ziggy is, 7 or so. And, like all these things are going on and all just these differences were so apparent. And I was advocating for him and trying to help him feel like he had a place in the world. And so kind of diving into his experience led me to explore more of my own, which I think is a fairly common experience with us. And yeah, and that was like because he didn't present the way that the autistic diagnosis works right now, and I didn't either. But then the more research I read and the more actual people I talked to that had lived experience and were diagnosed and like everything just kind of came together. And it's, as we sit here, an ongoing journey of discovery and like learning, different labels and terms that act as placeholders as we like tear apart the pathology of it and like build strength into what it is that we're doing with our differences and understanding them and healing from all of the things that have happened. So yeah, I mean, yes and no, I knew, but I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ziggy knows, and my daughter is not neither are formally diagnosed. So I've kept that out of our purview because every time we have gone and talked to our healthcare professionals about it, they want to immediately rush to put us on anti-anxiety meds or, get kinds of help that I don't feel are the best first step. So we've just been doing a lot of reading and a lot of talking and a lot of community work and peer support to find ways to grow together.
I love the sassy weirdo. I'd be happy to take on that identity as well.
That's going on my next round of business cards. Yeah.
Put it in your bio.
Add that to the bio. Yep.
I can completely see my daughter Grace embracing that diagnostic label. You would love it.
How about for yourself, Teena? Was your journey similar, different?
Yeah, it was quite similar, and it does kind of follow the norm, I guess, that has emerged with especially women, well, mothers, I should say, being like finding their diagnosis. My daughter Grace, she was really struggling with emotion regulation stuff many years ago. And I knew that it was beyond sort of just normal level emotional distress. It was pretty intense, and we sought help for her. And yeah, she was diagnosed with ADHD and like autistic traits is what they had sort of suggested. And yeah, from there, recognizing all of the similarities and doing the questionnaires and the assessment interview and all that kind of stuff, and they're asking these questions and I'm like, what would you be asking about that? It's like, doesn't everyone do that? And it just the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place when they were asking all these questions, because it's like, you're really, focusing in on this stuff. And this is a thing that's always kind of been really challenging for me to figure out and make sense of. Well, maybe I'm not the normal one looking at a whole bunch of weirdos who can't navigate social interactions properly. Maybe it is me that's doing it differently.
Maybe you're a sassy weirdo.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, sassy weirdo, because I'd be standing on the sideline with my sister, who like affectionately known as the raging ADHDer, because she's just done some of the craziest stuff that really makes me laugh. but it'd be her and I standing on the peripheral, looking at everyone, going, "WTF? Like, why did the person say that? What was that about?" Thinking that, yeah, the whole world was just a bit weird, but turns out it was us. That's cool. I like it like that. And then, yeah, fast forward, I met Caitlin, and yeah, Caitlin and I were working together and looking at all of this stuff and really sort of like, yeah, probably am. Yeah, me too. And then I think I went first, jumped
Yeah.
in for the formal
Yeah.
assessment, and then most likely badgered Caitlin to do the same.
Oh yeah, I was like, because I guess you have that whole back and forth of, oh, that imposter sort of thing. But I'm glad I
Yeah.
did. It was yeah, Tina and I were actually in a training together, and that was about like assessment of autism, and then that's when like the penny dropped. We were like messaging each other on Facebook, being like, hey, like I think we're autistic because it was like an online thing. It was like hilarious, but yeah, I guess I'm just really curious because I know like something that a lot of the parents that I work with that they tell me is that when it comes to parenting advice, they're just bombarded with all of this stuff. And I think particularly when you have neurodivergent children, people might have different perspectives of how you should go about that, and especially historically, if we're looking at it through that kind of medical model lens and some of the parenting practices back in the day. But I guess like I'd really love to have a bit of an understanding of your journey in terms of like that I guess you're talking about that kind of trial and error and exploration around what's the best fit for you as a parent and how you navigate that, particularly in a like more like neurodivergent affirming type way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying that my, my whole parenting journey in general started through a cultural anthropology lens, where I was looking at this as thinking, what's wrong with the world? Like something's not right. Kids aren't happy, parents aren't happy. Um, I grew up in an environment where children weren't valued, and it was beyond like, we're of the age where it was still common to hear, children are meant to be seen and not heard. And in my life, it was a more extreme version of that. And like I was just basically left to raise myself and then my younger siblings. And I knew that when I was becoming a mother, that I was like, that's not the right way to do it. So, where do I find examples? And so my brain was like, well, let's look at human history. And so even for me being pregnant, I rejected the medical model. I didn't mean to. Like I wasn't setting out. This is like the case for me my whole life. I've just never like been like, well, I'm gonna do the opposite. Well, then it turns out like, oh, there's a name for the fact that I always do the opposite thing, right? But then I was like, we as humans, our shared humanity is like we've been able to do all of these things, get this far into our development for better or worse, as a species. And our bodies were, and I'm going to be very careful treading this territory because I'm very happy that there's medical interventions. I'm very happy for all of that stuff. But my outlook was very much like, I'm 21 years old. I'm healthy. I'm strong. Women have been giving birth for millennia, and it has mostly worked out most of the time. And living in the year is 1999, we have access to these interventions. So I kind of went into parenting with that mindset of just like, we've been doing it. So like, how bad can you fuck this up? And like, if my baseline was as messed up as it was, like anything I did with care and consideration was going to be far better than what I endured and survived. So I started getting into attachment theory, and this was all very innocent. I didn't even know that like there was a huge attachment parenting community. I didn't know all of the trappings of what that would look like. But then 1999 and the internet was starting to explode and chat rooms and things like this. So I started, talking to more people and getting more information and sort of building in the bond of listening to my body, my intuition, following those signals, like learning about, I didn't know it was called interoception at the time, but like I was I was doing that intuitively. And I was blessed with a healthy child who had a temperament that was suited to my ability to care for this baby. And in the meantime, I was rejecting every norm I possibly could. I had also never heard of a stay-at-home mom. I thought that, as a feminist and, a woman in the year 1999, having a parent was just like one more thing you did and you just moved through life. And all the normal things would happen and like nothing normal happened. So, and like, why should I be surprised? Of course, looking back in the highlight reel, right? But so Sammy was just this like, I fell absolutely in love with mothering and fell more out of love with how the world was expecting me to behave as a mother and as a feminist and as a critical thinker of all things. And then that just basically informed everything I did moving forward because I thought, well, like if you're listening and responding and just like letting things emerge and adapting, that's the best way. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the right way, but we have all these barriers in our society. I mean, capitalism, our jobs, the demands of childcare, the fact that attachment is almost always foisted on the mother. And, it's so cliche to be like, it takes a village to raise a child, but like it absolutely does. And we've lost our villages. And the internet sort of became a village for me. And I know lots of other parents across the world, but there's also just a ton of bad information out there. And often like the loudest voices get the most attention. And the loudest voices in all the communities I was getting involved in, and this is also, wow, this was peak, autism is caused by vaccines. And so like, you dive into the ableist crap of that era. It hasn't gotten a whole lot better. There's a lot of positive things that have shifted for that and how we move through that in the world now, but it's still, there's so much work to do. So, yeah, I mean, that's the baseline for me is that I just look at everything through how we actually interact as humans and what's best for humanity, and do my best to escape the trappings of modern society while still living in it. It wasn't until this year that I was a fully stay-at-home mom. And I'm going to use air quotes because like, whatever. But I know that that's a privilege. And again, it's like, we don't all have the ability to, have healthy relationships with former partners and co-parents and things like that. And, like our shared humanity and our ability to communicate transcend all labels, all everything. And it's like, if we can't have one without the other because that's part of communication. But like the labels help us communicate. Our communication helps us use the labels in ways that help us as parents, help our children. And like ultimately the goal is like that we're growing a better world for all people, not just, neurodivergent people, but I think that we are sort of the canaries in the coal mine of being able to see and adapt and be sensitive to these things. And the more of us get together and have conversations like this, like the better our whole world is going to be for neurodivergent, neurotypical, and everything in between on this big, beautiful spectrum.
Yeah, I'm just having a think around something that a lot of the parents that I work with struggle with is that when we start to talk more about neurodivergent affirming ways of like approaching parenting and maybe changing their mindset a little bit, it's like they feel really torn because like for some people it's quite confronting because they're like, what? Like you're literally asking me to do the opposite of what everyone's told me to do. My experience of growing up, like what is this? And they kind of, sometimes they look at me like, are you sure that you're a qualified therapist? Like this sounds a bit out there. But there's this whole process of, I'm just like, okay, well, just give it a go. Like, just give it a go and see what happens. And then slowly they start to see these really positive changes in their children and in themselves. And by no means is it like an overnight thing. It is like over time. And once they see, those positive changes, then there's this moment where they're like, oh my gosh, like have I been harming my child, or like, oh my gosh, like there are all these dangers out there for my kiddo. So I think like I really feel for parents because not only are they supporting their child, but if they haven't known about their neurodivergence, they're going through their whole process, not just of themselves and their identity, but also like their identity as a parent and what that means to them and what that looks like. So I just wanted to throw it to Teena, because I'm sure she's got a lot to say on this topic.
Yeah, I do actually, because I think you're right. When you have a house full of neurodivergent people, and like in my practice, I often have parents come to me, and usually mum, wanting some support on parenting their neurodivergent child. You know, what's going on, all this kind of stuff, and you know, I often start that conversation with, well, there's two ways we can have this conversation. I can help you to learn and understand how to support your child, what, you know, how to make those adjustments in the house for your child, and yada yada yada. But that doesn't have anything to do with you. Or we can have a conversation about how to start balancing and prioritizing everybody's neurodivergent needs and, you know, quirks and whatever else. Because the thing is there's lots of you know, great advice around allowing your child to stim and things like that. But what happens when your child's vocal stim makes your brain melt and you just can't keep it together? You know, through all of your emotion regulation strategies, every trick in the book, but that vocal stim is like a hot stoker going into your ear and you just can't. So, you know, is the child's need to stim always more important than the parents' you know, auditory sensitivity? And finding a way to, you know, like meet everybody's needs, because absolutely the child shouldn't be put in a, you know, proverbial box and not allowed to express themselves and be themselves because of the parent, but also the parent has to be able to honor what they need as well. And that can be really difficult for so many different reasons. But the one I want to highlight is mum guilt. You know, when you, just using that analogy there with the vocal stim, sound sensitive person here. The mum guilt, when you're saying to your child, like, I really need you to maybe pop into your room, shut the door, I'm putting in my AirPods, but you know, you're getting really loud and it's, you know, it's overtaking my noise cancelling AirPods with my noise cancelling headphones over the top. I really need you to manage that. And you know, it's the end of the school year and they're struggling, and there's all this stuff. I know that it's not them being willfully, you know, horrendous to me, but it can certainly feel that way sometimes. And the mum guilt of asking for my needs to be met, because it's like, oh, this one pushes me over the edge and I don't want to get angry, ragey on the inside, so help me out. That can be really hard because, you know, I'm the mum and I'm also the therapist. So there's a double layer of guilt there that I should be able to manage this, but it's certainly not a choice that I make. It does get really hard, you know, and as you were saying, the concept of needing that village to raise your family, it is so important. My older sister and I, the one I spoke about before, the crazy ADHD, her and I are of similar age. We had our 3 kids quite, you know, together sort of thing, and without knowing we were doing it, we absolutely formed a village to raise our children. And you know, where we sit now, she lives not far from me as well. It just becomes so obvious how much I have relied on that village and how much I need it, because it's moments like that where I can send a text or call and go, hey, I'm losing it and I'm going to explode on the kids. It's really not fair. And she's like, yep, I'm coming to get them. No worries. I'll keep them for the night. Or, you know, vice versa. You know, hey, I'm dropping the youngest off I'll pick her up in a week maybe. And it's that the kids have got no idea that they've just been kicked out of the house because, of my stuff or her stuff. They've got no idea because we're just going to Kel's. And that's so
Well, now
normal.
they will because you're telling the whole internet about it. But But
Yeah.
moms are people too. And this is like one of the things that comes up in our household is, being able to, now that they're old enough, to say like, I know you need to stim, or I see, making observations about what's happening. And like we are going to lose our cool sometimes. And just like the kids lose their cool on each other, but we model like our best, like, wow, that wasn't cool that I did that. I need some space. I need this. It seems like you need something different right now. Like how can we work together to come up with a solution that meets everybody's needs? And like it often now does go exactly like that script that I just, it sounds like I'm making that up, but that's literally how the cadence of
Yes.
the conversation will go. And then there are other times where it's like, I need you to please get out of the kitchen immediately before I lose my temper. And they're like, we aren't used to hearing like the stark truth of how raw it feels and the guilt that comes up from that. But still, it's way better to just be able to state it and have space to do that because then our kids learn to model that too.
Mm.
And when I watch how Ziggy and Maddie get through conflict, if I can keep my mouth shut for just a second and not intervene, they will resolve things within minutes.
Mm.
Which, like,
Sorry.
I know adults that can't do that. So,
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that we we learn to parent from the way we were parented and all that other information that kind of gets thrown at us from various different ways. And like the communication from parent to child is very much so about I'm the boss, I'm the expert, I know everything. You don't challenge that. You do as you are told. I remember the phrase being said to me many times, do as I do, do as I say, not as I do. And, like that just still to this day baffles me. But that was like kind of like the premise of parenting, that I'm going to tell you what you're supposed to do and you're meant to be perfect and really good at everything and this good girl, so to speak, air quotes. And but I'm gonna be a human. I'm allowed to be a human and lose my shit, have my emotions, all but make mistakes, but you cannot. And that was absolutely something that I wanted to do differently, but I didn't have the vocabulary to do that. And the idea of using too many words with your kids was kind of like frowned upon. And it's like, oh, you're talking to them too much, you just need to tell them what to do. And again, in my practice with working with parents, I often have a conversation about getting comfortable with using weird words, with saying weirdly formal, somewhat formal, structured interactions. And like you said, B, sometimes it is absolutely that dialogue, just as you said it, and it sounds kind of formal. But then other times it's the get out of the kitchen right now. I can't. But also, one of my kids will come to me wanting to do some cooking in the kitchen, and me being able to say, hey, this would be really fun, but I've been at work all day and it was actually a really stressful day. I haven't been sleeping properly. I don't have the capacity to do this in a fun way. Do you think we could maybe cook that tomorrow? And a lot of parents would be like, why do you need to say that? Just tell them no, we'll do it tomorrow. But the neurodivergent kids, thinking along like the rejection sensitivity stuff that I know mine and me experience, if I said that to them, it's like, you hate me, you just don't want to hang out with me. I'm going to go into my room and just let my self-esteem dwindle. But saying to them, essentially, it's me. I haven't got it today, but I'm keen as mustard. Let's do it tomorrow. They, it's like, oh, okay, mum, yeah, no worries. And doing this for the last, few years, sometimes now that kid will come back and offer something to make my life a little bit easier, like, oh mum, I've taken the rubbish out, and it's like, oh, thank you. I didn't know you knew how to do that unprompted.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to highlight is, I guess I can speak as in the past being a neurodivergent child. And I think, yeah, a lot of parents are like, oh, well, I don't want to have these sorts of discussions. Like they're a child, like they're not going to understand. And, obviously it has to be age appropriate. But at the end of the day, like children and adolescents, they're just adults in training. And
Mm.
if we are modeling that, it's okay to express your emotions, it's okay to set boundaries, it's okay to express your needs. It's really important. And you're completely right, Teena. If things aren't explained, then a lot of kids, they're left sitting there going, oh, well, I must be wrong, or I've done something wrong, or, mum's mad at me. Like, what have I done? Whereas if you go, hey, look, I'm really upset right now, XYZ, then they can go, okay, like, I get it now. Mum's like upset, but she's not upset at me. So, I think when parents are more open, then kids can feel a lot more secure in understanding exactly what's going on. But also, it's a teaching moment, really, for them to express to others, but also to understand. Like, they might like walk into the kitchen and see mum and go, okay. Like maybe mum needs a bit of comfort. Maybe she needs me to take the rubbish out. So yeah, I think having that mindset is helpful because I think, especially parenting practices back in the day, it's kind of like treating children like, giving them commands, sort of thing. So I think it's important to consider that, yes, they'll always be your child, but one day they're going to be adults and you want to be able to have a different kind of relationship with your child.
Yeah, I was gonna say the part about, oh, your kids aren't gonna understand that. Like, there's 2 points I want to make there. One, like, I want to raise people that I want to hang out with someday, and that I
Mm.
want other people to want to hang out with. And, talking to them like the people I want them to become, excuse me, instead of limiting it to a what I said, do as I say sort of thing. Um, and the fact that we have neurodivergent kids, it's like they're going to create more stories beyond whatever words we give them anyway. So we may as well help, like seed the thoughts that they're having, that they're rooted in love and care and acknowledgement and observation, not please just guess what I'm thinking. And that's good for all people, but I think especially for neurodivergent kids, because I know as now that I know that I was one and raising them and knowing all the adults I do who were also once neurodivergent kids, it's like, I don't know how many of us I've heard say, like, I just wish somebody would have explained it. Like, you don't need to give me an essay or a huge speech, but just like a few choice words to let me know, like what's going on, because that also just builds empathy and perception. And no matter what you're coming in with your wiring, that helps. And language is, what makes us human, and being able to use that effectively makes such a big difference. And it's like, why limit that to, I know, I mean, I talked to my three, when my kids were 3, I talked to them probably like they were 20-year-olds, but obviously still had age appropriate conversations and didn't have expectations of them to be 20. But I talked to them like, yeah, okay, we're going to start these training wheels, like now.
Mm.
But not because I wanted them to turn out a certain way, but so that they could understand how they work and how everybody around them works. Like, that's just such a big part of self-advocacy, is like, hey, I notice when this happens, I feel this way. Or I notice that, I sigh a lot. One of my stems is, and my son reads that as frustration, and I've gotten in, and sometimes it is, but not his, not with him usually. And it will be one of those markers of like, oh, maybe I should step away for 10 minutes, and just like, I don't know, meditate, do some breathing, check out for a little while. Because if I'm walking around, even though I know I'm just stimming, anybody else in my life would be like, wow, B is mad and kind of stomping around the house. And I have to be like, no, I'm not mad. I don't have time to step away right now. So I'm going to be breathing loudly. But like going back to what Tina was saying earlier with when we have this house full of people with neurodivergence and all these differences, it's like, I always make the analogy that most days it's like playing pinball. And like the flippers are going and the ball's going everywhere. And then some days it's tilt, man. Like the whole thing, everyone's kind of shaking. And then there's other days where you get the extra ball at the end because you hit the magic score. And so then they're just pinging around extra. And in the end, like the game ends up ending anyway, and it's over and you reset and tomorrow's another day. But wow, it's a lot. It's just always a lot.
Mm.
And it's fun and it's exciting and words make it a lot better because those pinballs in the machine don't talk at you, they just float around,
Yeah, and I think with Gracie, as I shared before, it was her struggles with emotion regulation that kind of started our journey. And way back then, giving her like helping her develop that insight and learning words to express how she's feeling, but also how she can influence how she's feeling, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to talk to her about how her feelings are her responsibility, and what do you need to support yourself and things like that. And you know that it's this information is working, it's sinking in when you start to hear that come back to you. And she said to me one day, I'd asked her to clean her room, I'd given her like a little roadmap on how to do that, all the things, and I was frustrated she wasn't doing any of the things. And I got to a room. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check in now. Am I going to feel happy or am I going to feel cranky? And she says to me, well, quite nervously, she goes, well, Mummy, your feelings are your responsibility, so you can't put that on me. And I'm just like, oh, you're right. You're right. Let me rephrase that. Have you done what I asked? And now as a 13-year-old, we'll be talking because she's quite sensitive, like rejection sensitivity stuff. And she's really developed an awareness around that. And I'll be in my really kind of autistic communication style while I'm just kind of trying to get things done, and she'll stop me and she'll say, Mum, your tone of voice makes me feel like you're angry at me. Is that right? Are you feeling angry? And it's like, oh, I didn't realize I had that tone on. No, I'm not angry, not even almost. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed because I'm getting dinner started later than normal. So maybe that's what you're hearing. And she's like, okay, just checking that you're not mad at me. And I'm like, oh, it's being able to have that. And I learned so much from it as well. When she asks me those questions, it's like, oh, didn't realize I was coming across as cranky. Thanks for telling me. I'll put a weird smile on.
So I guess
we shouldn't have to mask for our kids either, but it is really nice that they perceive these things and then have the safety to ask.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're right. Because there's no need for me to be masking to make her feel better or comfortable. But the fact that she feels safe and comfortable to ask, like, because the answer could be yes. It could be, yeah, I'm actually really, really angry right now, and you haven't done this thing. So yeah, creating an environment where it is safe to ask and check in, because we all live here together.
I feel like we could talk about 6 more hours about all this stuff. And we've only like tackled a couple of things on our points today, but what else do we want to talk about?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're getting to the I guess the end. I think we're getting to towards an hour now. I thought what might be good to wrap things up, and this is probably like a big question, so we might be here for another 6 hours. But I guess for parents that are like neurodivergent parents that are just kind of starting out on this journey, like they've like identified as neurodivergent, maybe their kids are neurodivergent. If you could go back to your yourself way back when you started this journey, like what are some things that you would say to yourself or say to people in that, in that situation?
I would say, find other people that you either look up to or respect, and just listen to people and listen to their experiences and see, like, try things on and see what fits. Trust your intuition. Listen to your kids. Ask your kids what they need and what they want, because they're a lot closer to the source and haven't been shellacked by society's expectations as deeply as we have as adults. And then the other part I think is to allow ourselves, or, I wish I would have allowed myself more time to mourn. Not regret, not wishing things turned out differently, but that, to touch, Teena had mentioned this early in our conversation. You feel like you might be messing your kid up for life because you didn't know certain things sooner, or you could have done it better. And, the reality is we do the best we can with what we have, with the knowledge that we have. And, I live by Maya Angelou's know better, do better. And, the more we know, the better we can do. And every day is a new opportunity to improve, and or just get through until you can, get better support and get better resources. But love, intuition, trust, friendships, it's hard. It's hard on so many levels these days for so many reasons, but beating yourself up doesn't make it any easier. And yeah, so leaving some room for mourning and letting that breathe and growing from that, and just kind of really bringing your children and yourself and your partners, whatever, into a conversation about what reality can look like, because we have the power to shape that.
Definitely. I would agree with all of that. And I would add, uh, paying attention to what you need and what you would like life to be like, even as an adult, if you struggle to remember back to your own childhood. But a lot of the parenting decisions I make around the way I do things with my kids, the way I interact with them, the expectations I put on them, I draw from myself. Just as an example, I really, really, really struggle to cook dinner and then clean up the whole kitchen ready to go. I know a lot of people say that's what you're supposed to do. You don't want bugs, blah, blah, blah. But I don't have the capacity to do both of those things. So why should I be putting similar expectations on my kids? If they're saying to me, Mum, I'm exhausted, I should probably listen. Or, Mum, like it's too much, I'm overwhelmed. I listen. And it's not about just saying, yeah, don't worry about it, you don't have to do it. It's like, okay, I get that. Let's problem solve it. How can we do it differently? How, what do you need? When do you think, just having a conversation, but always entering that conversation from the position or perspective that they're the expert on themselves, and they're not trying to manipulate me. They're not trying to shit on me. They're not trying to, none of that. Yeah, they're probably trying to get out of doing stuff if they can, but like that in itself is in the realm of human nature, rather than horrendous child who's psychopath, sociopath.
Right.
So
They're never going to learn how to figure out how to be an adult if they don't just meet every obligation right now upon demand, right?
yeah,
No. Yeah, like that's not how it works. It's their biological imperative to try to get out of work.
yeah.
Yeah, I wish I
That's
could
a
have
smart kid right there.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, recognizing and listening and trusting, and being willing to be somewhat sort of flexible with those expectations, but also keeping in mind that their capacity to do chores and things like that is different to their same aged neurotypical counterparts, and like that's okay. I like to work from the the position that like what is the outcome I'm trying to achieve? What's the goal here? And like I actually answer that question to myself, which is by the time they get to their 20s, there's about, I want them to feel self-motivated, ready, confident to move out into the world, establish themselves, and take on all of their own responsibilities. So if that's my goal to get there by the time they're in their 20s, do I really need them to be managing themselves 100% right now? No. No, I need them to do that by the time they get there. So this is all about development, building, layering, and if they're not doing it all right now, that's okay because we've got a few years to go.
It's their practice space, and this is the time that they should be able to screw up. Not even screw up, just not get it absolutely right. So
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, avoid it, don't do it, mess it up, all that sort of stuff. Learn the natural consequences, where I can really support them to problem solve that and deal with the natural consequences. It's a learning space, but no expectation for them to be doing it all right now, because the goal is to get to adulthood, not to be an adult right now.
Yeah. So B, for all of our guests, we usually give them a bit of a space if they've got anything to plug. So I just wanted to, I guess give you a space to do that.
Oh yeah, well, thank you. First of all, it's been wonderful to talk to you both. This is awesome, a great conversation. One of the things I want to plug is that this year, the three of us will be working on some Divergent Dialogues diversions for some blog posts and other parenting related topics, I hope. So I'm looking forward to getting some work done on that. I'm also, we'll get the links to you, but my website, pragmagination.com is my little hub for all the projects I'm working on, and Positive Disintegration Network. This is going to be a group that is working towards Bill. I know you've had Chris and Emma on from Positive Disintegration, so we can direct folks back to that too. But building this world of accountability, and that we're not broken, and spreading out our village, our resources to, choose your own adventure and find support and community where folks really need it and what speaks to them, because the same thing doesn't work for every single one of us. We know that better than anyone. And I think that's everything for today. I mean, I hope that we have many more conversations in the months to come. So thanks again.
That's so good. And we'll put links to like your website and things in the show notes. So if anyone wants to check out, what Bee's got going on, I think, this year there's going to be lots of things to come. So it was probably, good timing as a introduction. Awesome. So I'm really excited to for this year with Divergent Dialogues. We've got some great topics coming up this year, so I'm really excited for that. Thank you so much, B, for coming on and joining us. This is the first episode of this year, and I can't even remember what we do at the end of the episodes. I think we just say some weird awkward bye. I don't think I say.
Yeah, we wave at the screen.
Hi from Michigan. It was awesome. Happy New Year.
Something about follow us, listen to the next episode, something like that. But
Smash that like button.
Things.
Things. So thank you to everyone who's joined us for this episode, and looking forward to I guess this year and everything that it brings.